All right. Well, here we are. I'm here with Bob Maricich, CEO of International Market Centers. Bob, this is serving as both an opening day event for IMC's virtual market and also for what I would call a power interview for Furniture Today with a key industry leader. So the nice thing is neither of us is up at 7 a.m. and outside at High Point Market. How does that feel?
That may be the only good thing out of all of this pandemic sort of thing. But I do miss you, Bill, and I do miss getting up early and spending some time with you. And inevitably there's the optimism around the start of market. There always is, and certainly different circumstances today.
Well, I dressed for you, Bob. I did. This was just for you. So
I'm impressed. I am sheltering where I don't have a suit and tie or any of that. So what you see is what you get.
There you go. So tell me about what IMC is doing. What is this virtual market?
Well, let me start. Fundamentally, as you know, we're in the business of putting buyers and sellers together. And that's what we're doing, but we're just doing it digitally. And the virtual market that we're putting together is actually an ongoing experience for both buyers and sellers. The buyers can come and go as they please, and there's added content. The market is running May 11th through 29th, so it's a 2-week market, unlike the regular 5-6 day market. And the core for the virtual market is access to online searchable catalogs. We've labeled that the catalog connection. And so far, 100 manufacturers or suppliers have uploaded their catalogs. We expect a lot more of that. It's rapidly expanding as we've gotten word out. And it's an easy thing to do. The manufacturer provides us with the catalog in PDF form, and the technology is relatively straightforward. And we have embedded in that technology through artificial intelligence, word recognition. And so that makes searching for a buyer across, with keywords across all of the catalogs seamless. For example, someone could type in gold leaf, and any product in all of the catalogs that are loaded that had gold leaf in the descriptive would come up. And so be from multiple vendors. The same thing with, if they put in the word mahogany or bed. And then if a buyer sees a product they're interested in, we connect them seamlessly to the seller. And obviously a buyer can search an entire catalog if they've got a favorite manufacturer or a vendor. I also mentioned the virtual market is an experience with much more value add and frankly like the physical market. So there's CEU accredited webinars and seminars, media content, interviews like this one.
And we're doing
programs. I'm assuming better ones too, Bill. Than
there is no better, Bob. There is none.
You have a lot of interesting leaders, but they're trend programs, product showcases, and actually a virtual show house, and then there'll be pop-up virtual events. So there's a lot more than just catalog connection. And then importantly, our marketing team is reaching out to 80,000 buyers, all of whom have attended a past High Point market, to tell them about the virtual marketplace. So we're excited about putting buyers and sellers together just in a very different way than what we've been used to for all of our careers at the physical High Point market.
Well, every time you do something new, just like when you launched IMCDI, the first question that some people have in the industry is, does this mean physical markets go away? So let's address the 800-pound gorilla in the room and just kind of clear the air on that one.
Well, no, I don't think so. And I'm pretty sure of that. I don't think so. And that's simply because buyers want it. And when we founded IMC 10 years ago, in raising funds from partners and lenders, we pressure tested, is this market thing something that's going to be obviated by technology? And since then, I'm going to say we've done 7 or 8 extensive surveys, consulting groups studying, and it all comes back that clearly buyers want markets. And as long as buyers want it, it's important. And the buyers also tell us that the physical marketplace is the best platform for discovery, and that's important. Whether it's in furniture or home decor, excuse me, or any of the elements of furnishings, the buyers want to look and touch and feel, and they want one-on-one relationships. And so physical markets do that. The digital element of it, I believe, is just more value add, and it's more value add for both the buyers and the sellers. I will put a plug in for our efforts with IMCDI on the digital side of enhancing markets, because truly the algebra is physical plus digital equals more than each individually. But the $100 million we're investing on an e-commerce platform really is going to allow sellers to not have to spend capital like that to get into the digital game for e-commerce. We're offering, our tools of ShopZio and then the catalog connection and the marketplace free of charge. This spend and this ability to really beef up the digital efforts to reinforce markets, we think that's the winning way going forward, because it adds more value for everyone involved in every channel of distribution.
If you look at the way consumers seem to be shopping today, and I'm going to try to, I think there's a correlation here. The number of store visits has gone down, but the importance of the store in closing the sale has not. So consumers do a lot of shopping online, information gathering online. Do you see this kind of thing and IMCDI and these other kinds of digital events serving as that kind of information gathering, and perhaps the physical market serving as the confirmation, the final sit test, that kind of thing? Do you see some kind of correlation in this B2B space to what's happening in the consumer space?
Well, I think for sure, one, you wouldn't want to be in the consumer space and be digital only, and you wouldn't want to be brick and mortar only. I think the omni-channel element of it is broadly acknowledged that you have to do that. That's why you're seeing big e-commerce players having some sort of physical footprint. So yeah, there are corollaries. I think one of the big differences, though, is when buyers come to market, they're coming for 3 or 4 days. And we've always said we want to put on effective, efficient, and compelling markets. And the effective and efficient part of that is how much work can they get done? How many new things? They want to come for what's new. So the digital part of this is outside of markets. They can do research on maybe new product categories they want to see, new vendors, and they can actually make market more rewarding for themselves. And then they can follow up digitally after a market. And so again, I think hand in glove, these two things make markets, whether they're digital or physical, both more productive.
Speaking of making physical markets more productive, IMC has a lot of construction and investment going on. You've got some major renovations underway in Atlanta. You've got some new construction in Las Vegas. Can you give us an update on how this may, the virus and the sheltering in place, how that may have impacted that, and where you are in terms of some of those enhancements?
Sure. And Bill, like everyone out there, we're in a capital preservation mode. This pandemic is a liquidity challenge for everyone, and we're no exception. That being said, those two major projects we have underway, we have contracted with maximum guaranteed pricing, and we don't want to lose that contract. And so we're going forward with finishing those projects. The Expo Center in Las Vegas is probably 85% done. There's an online camera. It's really exciting, and we're on time to get a certificate of occupancy in late June. So that'll be ready for whatever we do this summer. Atlanta, the first phase of the major lobby renovations and exterior renovations, which frankly are going to change the face of Peachtree Street, that is a longer term project, and we're continuing with that as well. And part of that is also just a focus that this too will end, and we've got to look at what our businesses are going to look like 2, 3, 4 years from now. And those two major projects are just significant changes to the experience and the effectiveness of Las Vegas and Atlanta markets. So we're going ahead with that.
You're in contact. I know that you recently fielded a survey to try to get a sense of where retailers are at right now, where manufacturers at. Even before we get into what you've asked in the survey, what are you hearing from people in the marketplace? What kind of anecdotal feedback are you and your team hearing from where people's heads are at, where their businesses are at, and how they're viewing the summer market season?
Clearly, people are really damaged by this pandemic. There's just no question. I know that Furniture Today is close to customers, and this is clearly not a recession. All of us have lived through major recessions where there are declines in revenue and you adjust accordingly. But many of the people we talk to, their revenues are off 70%, 80%, 100%, and they're fearful for their businesses and for their employees. And so this is unlike any time in my career, and probably this will be the significant event of a generation. I'm guessing it is. All of that said, a conversation almost always leads to a conversation around what's next. And markets are going to be different. This is there will be a new normal, and we talk about that. The other thing is, I think there's potentially a silver lining in all of this. And that comes from people spending all of their time sheltering at home in place and looking around and saying, am I set up to work more remotely from home? Do I have the right furnishings? I think, for years people said dining was dead. And anecdotally, people are dining at home now and finding out, hey, it's pretty nice to sit around a dinner table and talk with your family and engage. And look at maybe furnishings that are ready for replacement. And, for the last 30 or 40 years, I've always heard that we're losing the race for consumers' dollars because their disposable income's going towards travel, vacations, dining out, staying at Airbnb, whatever. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a long time before people are going on cruises, and this may change the fundamental centricity of home and home life. And that's a huge opportunity for the industry. And, this is an industry of entrepreneurs who are agile and opportunistic. And so I'm enthused about that.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's some real opportunities here. I mean, people are developing new cooking skills. Those are not going to go away simply because people are able to go back out again. I think the cruise analogy example is just absolutely spot on. I suspect there'll be some concern around that. I mean, we talked in the last recession about staycations. I fully expect that you're going to see staycations become much more of a norm, and that I think does bode very well for the home furnishings industry. And then again, and we've talked about this even before this, the demographics are in the industry's favor. Household formation has always been a critical driver of business for the furniture industry, and you have this huge demographic bubble of millennials and Gen Z behind them kind of moving into their core furnishing years. The reality of that, when you study economics, demographic determinism is huge. The impact of that, I don't think anybody should underestimate.
Well, and I think to that point, Bill, again, I think everybody agrees there is a what's next. And in that context, there's not going to be a shutdown of the housing market like there was in the Great Recession. I was on a call Sunday with one of the largest home builders in the United States. They currently have 25,000 homes under construction. And the way the construction industry works, they can continue building those homes with social distancing. They just have to have one group of trades on site at a time, but they're going forward with that. And there fundamentally still is a shortage of single family homes, and especially in affordable ones. And so there's not going to be a wait for that, trigger to be tripped once we come out of this, and we will come out of this. There's no question.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And speaking of coming out of this, I mean, you did field a survey. You have a survey currently in the field. I understand we'll probably hear more on that toward the end of the month in a couple of weeks. What were some of the things that you were trying to gauge from your retail and manufacturer audiences? Okay,
well, first of all, Bill, we wanted it to be really broad-based to see if there was a difference between, and it's the survey is to buyers. And so wanted broad-based, so we're surveying furniture buyers, home decor buyers, gift buyers, and apparel buyers that touch all three of the businesses to see if there's a different approach. And also we want to be able to sort by geography. The outreach is to 200,000 buyers, all of whom have attended a market in the last, I believe it's last 2 years, and also every channel of distribution. So e-tailers, top 100, department stores, brick and mortar, interior designers, etc. So we're looking for differences of perspective, and so in the context that there really is no data out there. We've never dealt with anything where there's so many things that are unknowable. And when they're unknowable, it leads to conjecture. And that conjecture goes down a lot of unproductive pathways. So, so the questions at a high level are what do buyers want and need now, right now, immediately? What's the optimal timing of future markets? What if markets slid a week, a month, or when do they think that they're going to need a market? And what about the format of markets? Could you have an appointment only market? And their view towards trade shows. Importantly, when they think they're going to feel comfortable and safe in going to a market, getting on an airplane, renting a hotel room. And then how are they using digital tools? How productive are they? Are they meeting their needs? And all of this is really geared around what can we do now? What can we do this fall? And planning for markets of the future. A big question, of course, is around when they're going to feel comfortable around safety. And we have got an unprecedented effort in how we would conduct markets this summer and going forward as long as this pandemic is present, because we know people need to feel safe and comfortable.
So this really is not just an idea of the long-term, 3, 4, 5. You're really very focused on what you need to know in terms of reopening, getting things back on track, where people's psyches are right now in this time frame, and how that might inform the markets this year.
Exactly, and we've got plans to go out with subsequent surveys so we can gauge changing perceptions, like around travel. Maybe someone says, I just don't feel comfortable traveling at all right now, but in a month they may feel differently. So we'll be able to benchmark some of those things. It's a broad survey. I think it's 60 questions. So it's not, it really does take commitment to fill it out. And, we've done everything possible to get it filled out by the right people, the CEOs or a senior official of these, of the buyers.
So I know your team is always looking ahead and planning and, strategizing. How do you think this might, and I don't mean just the survey, but the events today, how might that inform and impact the way markets might be? You referenced, for example, will people want appointments I think in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, you and I talked about, how the entry points might change and some of the impacts there. Do you have some sense of, or are there some things that you're looking at that you think are likely to occur in terms of how we might address markets going forward?
Well, I think in the near term, and until there is a vaccine, I think that any gathering is going to be affected, and I think we have an incredible task force. We've hired as a consultant a globally recognized epidemiologist. He is in charge of the infectious disease program at Emory. He talks daily with the White House epidemiologist, and he's helping us develop guidelines and protocols. I think it's without question in the near term, you're going to see a requirement for personal protective equipment, masks, in some cases, gloves, by everyone, everywhere. Enhanced sanitation and cleaning, social distancing, limitations on crowds, and that's not just going to be for markets. That's probably going to be for any kind of gathering places, and so that's going to be very different. But we think we can do that. We're not going to spare any expense, and we certainly are not going to take any chances with safety. So we've got experts working on that. We've got direct contact with the Center for Disease Control, with OSHA. We've got the resources of Blackstone, who has 180 companies that are dealing with similar situations. And so there'll be a new normal for a while that will be really centered on personal safety.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a longer term view, beyond next year, even over the next couple of years. Let's look at some of the big picture trends. How do you see the market environment evolving as retail is continuing to evolve?
I've been very careful, and we've been very careful, Bill, of not getting in the arena of picking winners and losers. But I think we're in a marketplace where at retail, there are going to be winners and losers. And in the supply side, there's going to be winners and losers. And they're going to dictate, I think, if there's any fundamental changes beyond the safety of market. But I don't foresee a day when people don't want a physical showroom that's basically their trade brand presence, and that they won't put their best foot forward in building their trade brand, through physical markets. I think there's just likely to be a shift of fortunes. But as long as there are buyers and sellers in the industries we're involved with, they'll want to come to markets. They'll want to shop effectively and efficiently and safely. And it's incumbent on us, to continue to feed that. I think the technology and digital tools as part of our tech stack with IMCDI is building out tools for smart showrooms. And I think we'll streamline and make registration easier and shopping easier and more compelling. But I don't see a fundamental shift in the purpose of market and the need for market.
Okay, so let's segue now. We've talked all kinds of business things. I see you sitting there in your home. I'm curious, where did you choose to shelter in place?
Well, I didn't choose. We have a little fishing place, and I mean little, in the Florida Keys. And I came down here to meet my wife 48 days ago, thinking it was going to be a long weekend. And so we have been sheltering in place. But gosh, in this environment, it's a very tiny place, and my wife and I are 40 feet away in the different rooms, or 30 feet away, and I think I see her less than when I'm in Atlanta going to the office and coming home. It's been kind of 24/7.
Okay, I know you're an avid fisherman. Do you have the equipment? Have you been able to get out and fish at all?
Well, of course I have the equipment. I have, strangely enough, not as much as probably I would have in normal times. The water's right out my front door and easy access, but it's been pretty limited.
I don't know about you. I've found that this method of communication, right, being isolated from all of the people that you normally communicate with, it actually takes more time. What have you kind of figured out in terms of communication? I mean, you manage a pretty diverse and disparate organization. I would guess that that takes a lot of time and effort, and probably more time than you might have spent otherwise. Have you picked up any tips, strategies you can share with the rest of us?
Well, Zoom, of course, I mean, that has been our choice for meetings. We have over 500 people working remotely. And so actually, I've got to say the productive use of time it has gone well. I sit in on at least for each business unit, one leasing meeting a week, a marketing meeting, operations. A lot of my time is being on, with guidelines and protocols for, but I have found it incredibly productive. At the end of the day, communication is just about everything. And particularly in a time like this, where I mentioned the facts are unknowable in a lot of cases, people will let that conjecture go to a bad place, almost to hopelessness. And so they want to see each other. They want to understand what's going on. And these digital tools have been terrific for that. And I think, we've had a number of all team meetings where we've had almost 500 people on a meeting where I'll give them an update on the business. And, I think as long as you're transparent and you communicate a lot, it builds trust. And I think it's easy to do face to face, even if it's digital, versus trying to do it in a letter or email or something like that. So I've been encouraged by the productivity of the tools. And for whatever reason, yep, I'm like you, working a lot more hours than I did before.
Isn't that, it's an interesting thing. Well, again, communication, just simply, as you said, how many meetings are you in now, perhaps compared to before? And everyone I speak with seems to express that same kind of a thing. But the other thing that I'm very encouraged by is, I don't know about your organization, but I've seen productivity not drop off. I think a lot of employers have hesitated from encouraging remote work because there's this perception, and maybe it's those of us who are of a particular generation who believe if you're, in the heads in the bed theory, right? If I can't see you, you're not working. But I think that this, as societally, you may see a larger shift to more remote work because people are getting work done, productivity is occurring. I think that bodes well for the furniture industry as well.
I don't think there's any question, Bill, at least from my personal experience and our personal experience at IMC, productivity is good, maybe better. The thing I question longer term is, can you really build an effective culture if you had, a totally remote workforce? And I personally don't think the answer to that is yes. I think just like markets, the face-to-face, the one-on-one is important. I think in building a culture within a company. And so I could foresee a new normal where there's partial work at home, and I wouldn't worry about productivity. But for us, the values and the culture is so important that, getting back to the personal touch will be really important.
I know I'm looking forward to getting back to that. I'm hoping to see some folks at market real sooner rather than later, and get to see product up close and personal. I agree with you. There's nothing better than that sense of discovery, of walking around a corner and seeing just an absolutely beautiful display, or getting and looking at a piece of leather or a piece of fabric and, getting a sense of the hand. There's no replacement for that.
No, and I don't think you could measure, the importance of relationships. And I'm sure you've interviewed hundreds of people in the industry, and I'll bet you every single one of them says that this is an industry where relationships are important. And a lot of those relationships, most of them come together at market.
They do. Well, let's hope we can all get back to a market real soon. Bob, thanks for taking the time, and good luck sheltering in place in a somewhat surprising and unexpected location.
Well, you be well too, and I hope to see you face to face sooner rather than later, Bill. Take care.
Thank you. Take care, Bob.